They were taught to fear Islam, to hate it. But when they finally dared to question everything, they found a truth so powerful it shattered their world. What happened next, no one could have predicted. In Aalborg, Denmark's northern shores, three unlikely voices disrupted the harmony of a community built on generations of tradition. The revelation that Sarah, Rebecca, and Emma, three young women from prominent Jewish families, had embraced Islam sent ripples through the town's foundation, transforming personal choice into public spectacle. Sarah Goldstein stood in her parents' living room. Her father, Daniel, a respected elder in their synagogue, sat rigid in his leather chair, while her mother, Rachel, hovered anxiously by the doorway. "I need to tell you something important," Sarah began, her voice steadier than her heart. "I've found my spiritual home in Islam." Her words fell like shattered glass. Daniel's face transformed, color draining before flooding back with alarming intensity. "What madness is this?" he demanded, rising from his chair. "Is this some kind of joke?" "It's not madness, Father. It's clarity, something I've been seeking for years." Daniel's palm struck the side table with such force that a family photograph toppled over. "Do you understand what you're saying? You're betraying everything. Your heritage, your ancestors who died for their faith, everything we've taught you." Sarah flinched but stood her ground. "I'm not betraying truth by finding it elsewhere. Islam has given me peace I've never known before." "Peace?" Daniel's laugh was hollow. "You speak of peace while driving a knife through your mother's heart?" Rachel's quiet sobs punctuated his words. Sarah took a step toward her, but Daniel moved between them. "If you continue with this absurdity, you're no longer welcome in this house. Your inheritance, your place in this family, all of it gone. Think carefully about what you're throwing away." "My faith isn't something I can barter with," Sarah replied softly. "My soul isn't for sale." "Then you've made your choice," Daniel said coldly. "Everything will go to Rebecca instead." The mention of her younger sister made Sarah's heart constrict, but before she could respond, Rebecca herself appeared in the doorway. A delicate silk scarf framed her face, its meaning unmistakable. "That won't be necessary, Father," Rebecca said quietly. "I've found the same truth as Sarah. I'm Muslim too." The silence that followed seemed to bend reality itself. Daniel staggered backward as if physically struck, collapsing into his chair. "Not both of you," he whispered. "This cannot be happening." Rebecca moved to stand beside her sister, their shoulders touching. "We didn't plan this. We each found our way separately, but the destination was the same." Their father's shock crystallized into rage. "You've both lost your minds. You're dead to me, both of you, dead, out of my house." Rachel finally found her voice through tears. "What have we done wrong? Where did we fail you girls? How could you reject everything we are?" Sarah felt her composure cracking. "Mama, this isn't rejection, it's fulfillment. Something was missing in my life, and now it's not. Please try to understand." Rachel turned away, her shoulders shaking. The family portrait that had fallen now lay face down, a fitting metaphor for what was unfolding. News travels with astonishing speed in small communities. By nightfall, phones buzzed across Aalborg with whispered conversations. By morning, the local newspaper ran the headline, "Local Jewish sisters embrace Islam. Community in shock." By the following week, national media descended on their quiet town, eager to sensationalize what they deemed a cultural oddity. The spotlight found not just Sarah and Rebecca, but also Emma Rosenberg, their childhood friend who had converted months earlier, a fact previously kept private. Now the three women found themselves unwilling representatives of a conversation Denmark wasn't prepared to have. "I never wanted this attention," Emma confessed one evening as they gathered in the small apartment she'd rented after her own family's rejection. "They're making us sound like either victims or rebels. They can't fathom that we made thoughtful choices." Sarah looked out the window at the reporters who occasionally lingered across the street. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly. Emma considered the question. "The pain of losing family. Every day. The faith I've found? Never. Some prices are high, but worth paying." Rebecca nodded, absently tracing the pattern on her headscarf. "It's not about rejection. It's about finding a truth so compelling you can't turn away once you've seen it. When I first read the Quran, it was as if the word spoke directly to my heart." Sarah smiled in recognition. "I felt the same way. There's a verse in Surah Al-Baqarah that says, 'This is the book about which there is no doubt, a guidance for those conscious of Allah.' I never understood what true guidance felt like until then." The weeks that followed tested their resolve in ways they hadn't anticipated. Former friends crossed streets to avoid them. Employers found subtle reasons to reduce their hours. Anonymous notes appeared under their doors, some threatening, some pleading for them to come to their senses. Yet in the face of isolation, they found community. A small group of Muslims in neighboring Friedrichshafen welcomed them, offering both spiritual guidance and practical support. Through them, they learned that faith wasn't just in prayers, but in actions, in resilience, in choosing compassion when faced with hostility. Sarah found solace in the rhythmic recitation of Quranic verses. Rebecca discovered joy in the discipline of daily prayers. Emma, always the academic among them, immersed herself in Islamic history and philosophy. Together, they built a foundation to withstand the storm around them. The women's small apartment became their sanctuary. Each evening, they would gather for Maghrib prayer, finding strength in their unity. One particularly difficult day, after Emma had lost her job and Rebecca had been verbally assaulted on the street, they sat together reciting Surah Ash-Shar from the Quran. "For indeed, with hardship will be ease. Indeed, with hardship will be ease." As they recited, the room seemed to fill with a gentle light that couldn't be explained by the setting sun. A profound sense of tranquility enveloped them, washing away the day's pain. They exchanged glances, each seeing the other's faces illuminated with an inner glow. No words were needed. They understood they were experiencing something beyond ordinary explanation, a divine reassurance that they were not alone. The confrontation they had feared arrived without warning. Their new life was modest but peaceful, until the night Daniel Goldstein arrived with his brother and 2 other men from the synagogue. The pounding on their door came after midnight. When Emma cautiously opened it, the men pushed past her into the small living space. "Enough of this foolishness," Daniel announced, voice tight with controlled anger. "You're coming home where you belong." Sarah stepped forward. "Father, please, don't do this." "This has gone on long enough," her uncle Nathan interjected. "The whole community is talking. Your parents can't show their faces at synagogue without whispers following them." "We're sorry for their pain," Rebecca said, "but we can't pretend to believe what we don't." "Pretend?" Daniel's voice rose. "After everything, you think this is about pretending? This is about family, about loyalty." "No," Sarah replied firmly. "It's about truth. We can't be loyal to something we no longer believe in." The tension escalated as Daniel grabbed Sarah's arm. "You're coming home one way or another." What followed was chaos, raised voices, physical intimidation, the men attempting to force the women to leave. In the struggle, Rebecca's Quran fell to the floor. When one of the men moved to kick it aside, Emma dove to retrieve it, cradling the book protectively against her chest. "You've chosen a book over your own blood," Daniel said bitterly, towering over her. "We've chosen truth as we understand it," Sarah responded, helping Emma to her feet. You can threaten us, you can even hurt us, but you can't change what's in our hearts." Something in her words, the quiet certainty perhaps, seemed to pierce through Daniel's anger. He stood frozen, looking at his daughters as if seeing strangers. At that moment, the apartment lights flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. What happened next would be debated among them for years to come. In the darkness, the Quran in Emma's hands began to emit a soft, pulsating light. The Arabic text on the open page glowed with a luminescence that seemed to emanate from within the pages themselves. The light grew stronger, casting the room in a gentle blue-white radiance that illuminated their faces, but somehow did not reach their aggressors. Daniel and the men backed away, their expressions transforming from anger to awe and then to fear. The Quran's light intensified until it filled the small apartment, yet it was gentle to the eyes, comforting to the three women but disorienting to the intruders. "What sorcery is this?" Daniel whispered, his voice barely audible. "Not sorcery, Father," Sarah said softly. "A sign. Allah's light cannot be extinguished." As if responding to her words, a soft breeze inexplicably filled the room. Impossible, as all windows were closed against the winter night. The pages of the Quran turned by themselves, stopping at Surah An-Nur. Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. The men stood transfixed, unable to move or speak. Then, without another word, Daniel turned and left, his companions following behind him in stunned silence. The door closed behind them with a quiet click. The moment they departed, the mysterious light gradually faded, returning to the pages of the Quran until only the moonlight through the window remained. The power returned to the apartment, electric lights flickering back on as if nothing extraordinary had happened. The three women sank to the floor in a circle, hands finding each other in the shared experience of something beyond explanation. "Did that really happen?" Rebecca whispered, her voice trembling. "Yes," Emma answered, looking down at the Quran in her lap, now ordinary in appearance, yet somehow changed. "Allah's presence was with us." Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. "The Quran says they plan and Allah plans, and Allah is the best of planners." They sat in silence for a long time, absorbing the magnitude of what they had witnessed, a miracle that strengthened their faith and protected them in their moment of greatest vulnerability. The days that followed brought an unexpected calm. The harassment ceased completely. The reporters found other stories to chase. Most remarkably, their families maintained their distance, but without the previous hostility, as if the inexplicable event that night had inspired, if not acceptance, then at least a wary respect for powers beyond their understanding. 5 years passed. The three women built new lives grounded in their chosen faith. Sarah became a translator, working with refugee assistance programs. Rebecca found her calling in education, teaching at a multicultural school. Emma completed her graduate studies in comparative religion, bringing an insider's perspective to interfaith dialogue. They each found partners who shared their values and vision, not the dramatic romance of movies, but the steady companionship of those walking the same path. Their modest homes became gathering places for converts and born Muslims alike, creating the community they had once been denied. The miracle of that night remained private among them, a sacred experience they discussed only with each other. Yet its effect rippled outward through their lives in subtle ways. The three women carried themselves with a quiet certainty that others sensed, a knowledge of divine protection that gave them courage in difficult times. On rare occasions, they caught glimpses of their families from afar, at a market, across a crowded street. There were no reconciliations, no dramatic reunions, but sometimes there was a nod of recognition, an acknowledgement of shared humanity, if not shared belief. One autumn afternoon, as Sarah walked home from work, she spotted her father sitting alone in the town square. He had aged considerably, grief and anger etching deep lines around his eyes. For a moment, she considered approaching him, but something in his posture stopped her, a weariness that suggested some battles leave no victors. Instead, she whispered a prayer for him, for her mother, for healing that might someday bridge what now seemed unbridgeable. The prayer brought no dramatic resolution, no miraculous reunion, but it offered her peace, the same peace that had drawn her to Islam years before. That evening, gathering with Rebecca, Emma, and their families for a shared meal, Sarah reflected on their journey. They had lost much: family connections, community standing, the comfort of belonging to the world they were born into. But they had gained something too: conviction tested by fire, faith chosen rather than inherited, and a community built on shared values rather than shared bloodlines. Was it worth it? Emma's young daughter asked innocently, having heard bits of their story over the years. The three women exchanged glances, a lifetime of experience passing between them. "Truth always is," Sarah answered simply. "When you find something real, you don't let go, even when holding on hurts." Rebecca nodded. "The hardest paths often lead to the most beautiful destinations." Emma smiled, passing the bread to her daughter. "And we never walk alone. The Quran promises, and whoever relies upon Allah, then He is sufficient for him. That's the most important lesson we learned." Outside their window, the Danish sky darkened into evening, stars emerging one by one. Inside, light and warmth prevailed, not the comfortable inheritance they had once expected, but something they had built themselves, brick by brick, prayer by prayer, choice by choice. Every evening, as they unfolded their prayer rugs and opened their copies of the Quran, they remembered the night when divine light had manifested to protect them. The memory sustained them through whatever challenges arose, a personal miracle that confirmed what the Quran had taught them. With difficulty comes ease. The path had been difficult, the cost high, but as they bowed their heads in gratitude before the meal, none of them harbored regret. They had found their truth and held fast to it through the storm, and in that steadfastness, they had discovered something beyond mere belief. They had found themselves. The struggle to maintain faith in the face of opposition had transformed three uncertain young women into pillars of quiet strength. Their story spread not through sensational headlines, but through lives lived with integrity, a testimony more powerful than words could express. The journey continued day by day, prayer by prayer. There would be more challenges, more moments of doubt, more painful reminders of what had been lost. But there would also be joy, community, and the deep satisfaction of living in alignment with their deepest convictions. "Alhamdulillah," Sarah whispered, "praise be to God," and the others echoed her sentiment. For all that had happened, for all that was yet to come, they were grateful. They had found their path of light and would continue walking it one step at a time into whatever future awaited them. When they had begun this journey, they had been seeking something they couldn't name, a missing piece, a resonating truth. They had found it not just in grand revelations and divine signs, but in small moments of clarity, in the peace that descended during prayer, in the wisdom of Quranic words that spoke to modern hearts, in the community that embraced them when others turned away. And perhaps most importantly, they had found it within themselves, the courage to follow conviction even when the cost was high, the strength to rebuild when familiar foundations crumbled, the faith that sustained them through darkness into light. Their story had no dramatic conclusion, no final scene where all conflicts resolved. Instead, it continued to unfold day by day, a testament to the enduring power of sincere belief, the quiet revolution of hearts transformed by faith, and the miraculous ways Allah works in the lives of those who submit to His will. In Aalborg, Denmark, a place where Islam had once seemed as foreign as distant stars, three women had found their spiritual home, not in the traditions they were born to, but in the truth they chose to embrace. And in that choice, Made and remade each day, they discovered the most profound freedom of all. The freedom to follow their hearts toward the divine, wherever that path might lead, protected by the light of Allah that could never be extinguished.